Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Napster. It was the thing in the early 2000s, but they're back and they have a Web3 angle. CEO Jon Vlassopulos is joining me now. Jon, welcome.
Hey Jen, good to be here.
I didn't think I'd be talking about Napster today, so tell me, is the Napster we're talking about today the same Napster that I used when I was in grade school to pirate music?
Yeah, no one is coming after you from your grade school days to lock you up for your deeds of the past, Jen. So actually it is the same Napster by brand, but different product. So I worked on Napster 20 years ago when I was at Bertelsmann. We lent them $50 million and we took $1 billion offer at the music industry. I had a German boss at the time and he was like, I'm going to save the music industry, you are going to die, get on my train. He came from AOL, he was right, but the music industry in '99 wasn't ready to cede control to tech. So we didn't get the deal done. And the Napster 2.0 that we didn't launch, I still think was better than anything that's come since. So that stayed in my mind. I went off and worked in television and advertising and telco, investing, and then at Roblox. And now kind of coming back again, the company was public in the UK, so it ended up being a streaming service similar to Spotify. So we've been running as a competitor to Spotify for the last couple of decades. And now the group of Web3 TradFi and DeFi investors took it private last spring. I came in the fall. And we're now taking advantage to kind of finish what we started 20 years ago and disrupt the music industry.
Well, you started all those years ago disrupting the music industry with Napster. Tell me about how the music industry has evolved. Are they more receptive to these innovative technologies now?
Yeah, I think, so if you remember with the old Napster when you were in grade school, you could also chat, and there was a community, it was decentralized, there was contextual commerce, all these cool things that with streaming, we kind of went backwards, and it's really just been a commodity for the last couple of decades. So not really differentiated between us and Spotify and others. So yeah, we think the music industry is very excited to have change. Artists need to get paid more materially so art can be supported. So I think the innovation window that we have now feels similar to what we had in the late 90s. It's opened up again, where for 20 years there hasn't been much innovation, it's been kind of stasis. And we think Web3 is that nice unlock. So Spotify came about as sort of the mobile era, and we feel Napster, we're now ironically coming back again in the era to be the next kind of leader for change in the industry. But this time around, I think a lot of the labels and artists are very much on board because they hoped that gaming was going to deliver the hit. We delivered a lot of great successes at Roblox, but not sort of measurable, predictable revenue, and fitness was meant to deliver it. So everyone's now looking to companies like Napster to deliver the next era of the business.
I think it's one of those things, if I had to think of everyone and whether they benefited or not from the internet, kind of all the revolution that we've had for the last 30 years, I would argue musicians and artists in general probably got screwed the most by the technological innovation that we've had. And some of the promise of Web3 is to make sure that we are rewarding people again for their contributions and for their creation. So how do you think about the artist side and not just the label side?
100%. So we're the indie, right? So we, as I described, I don't know if we can swear on this, but I described it to a lady at a music festival in Miami. She was like in her early mid-20s. Like I was talking to the festival owners, and they were high-fiving and Napster, and they remembered it. She wasn't around in that era. She was like, "Are you famous? Like, what's Napster?" And I was going, "Well, how should I describe it to a 23-year-old?" And it's like, "Well, we blew shit up back in the day and changed the whole business. And do you use Netflix?" She goes, "I use Netflix." And it's like, we enable all of that for you. And she goes, "That's cool. That's so Napster." Right? She's using it as a verb. So I think we're independent. We stand for the artists. We're not, and luckily we're not too small. A lot of the Web3 music companies, a lot of the investment went to Web3 gaming and not to music, only a couple $100 million. So we've done some acquisitions in the space. We've got more to come. So we want to be about empowering, as we did in the old days, empowering the artists to reach their fans. We started that at Roblox with concerts. We did Lil Nas X, 40 million people, generated hundreds of millions of dollars, mainly for the artists. So we have relationships on both sides, but we're definitely about empowering artists to connect them with their fans, opening up that data so they can do their art and be rewarded for it.
All right, so I've been told we cannot swear, so don't swear on the show. In February, you acquired NFT music platform Mint Songs, right? And we're talking about music NFTs here. Spotify launched their version of a beta for music NFTs. How are you differentiating yourselves from the big players like Spotify, who have kind of grabbed up a lot of market share when it comes to streaming?
Yeah, so I think the original Napster was Rhapsody. So we were actually before Spotify. So we were the original innovators legally and on the disruption side. So we're unfortunately, Spotify is big, and and they're like a big tanker that's hard to move. So we're not worried really about innovation. I think they're chasing audio, so they're delivering to the street every quarter. They got to go deeper into audiobooks and podcasts and things that make more margin than music. So they're kind of moving away from music, despite a few saber-rattling press releases. So we have great conviction where within a year at Consensus 2024, what you see as Napster will look materially different than any other streaming service. So we're going to have community, artists will be offering, like through Mint, collectibles and rewards for their community and fans. We want to bring in kind of Roblox stuff that I did, whether it be like meet and greet experiences and concerts. So it'll be this whole fun thing where, like, coming to Austin, what's on in Austin today will be like what's on Napster today. You'll be connecting with fans. Foo Fighters are doing a meet and greet. Taylor Swift drops a new collectibles. I got rewarded as a top fan for the Black Angels or whatever. So it'll be alive, and I think Spotify is still stuck being a commodity and just access, which will become less and less relevant.
You know, there are a lot of these platforms popping up, right, that allow artists to engage with their fans, to build communities, to foster that type of engagement. Do we need so many of them? Like, how are the fans actually going to be able to choose which ones to go to?
So I think from an artist perspective, the whole promise of Web3 is to kind of retain that relationship and ownership of your art and the relationship with your fans. So all the current era of businesses are somewhat exploitative, although we'll go out that we're for the fans and we're for the artists and for the curators. So artists are looking to kind of own those communities. So I think Napster is big enough because you don't want to go to somewhere that's too far off the highway. So Napster is big enough where we already have relationships with all these artists. Every artist in the world has a storefront on Napster. So imagine them being able to program that, own that relationship. We have 20 years of data that we're happy to share with them and partner with them on. And we're looking to obviously give them the lion's share of the revenue. So yeah, we are artist friendly and we can give them that stage and platform to connect and be successful.
How do you think about balancing artist needs and fan needs? Because if you're going to have music NFTs that don't have any real utility, fans are not going to be very happy. If you give a lot of utility and kind of what fans want, more access, more content, more kind of exclusive things, you are putting a lot of demands on the artist. So how do you think about balancing the two sides of this emotional marketplace, if you will?
So yeah, so I think any fan, it just is obsessed. So the great thing about music versus film and TV, I know we're on TV, but I think generally actors, Gal Gadot is not actually Wonder Woman, newsflash, right? So they're all scripted. The great thing about artists is they are actually real, 24/7, 365, and the amount of time that they spend in a year making their actual music could be a couple of weeks. And the rest of the year, they're just being really interesting. And as a fan, I want to know everything that they're doing. The current platforms aren't the right output, right? Everything is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and labels are now thinking about doing 30-second songs and 29-second, eventually 2-second songs, so it's going the wrong direction. So artists already have all the assets, they just don't have anywhere to put them, and they don't want to put them on other platforms where they're not going to be valued. So it's not as much of a lift for the artists. They're actually relieved, but they can have a platform, they can really reach their fans, hang out there with the fans, get feedback, and have a valuable relationship and exchange. And then from a fan perspective, we're not as focused on, we have music. So I think the problem with a lot of the music NFT companies, they don't have the rights. We have the rights. We have every song in the world already, so we don't need to rebuild your collection NFT by NFT. We have it all. So we're thinking about things that can expand with kind of access. You know, we are accessing a crawl concert or a meet and greet, or if you're accessing art and video and behind the scenes, kind of extra stuff around the song. So at Roblox, all the money we made from virtual merchandise had nothing to do with music. It was all the fans dressing up and representing their little Nas X backpacks and 21 Pilots, flags and things like that.
Speaking of Roblox, the last question I'm going to ask you, we spoke about the metaverse in the first segment of this show. We're now talking about music. Do you think gaming is the catalyst that's going to bring people to the metaverse?
Not necessarily. So I'm a big believer. I worked on mobile 20 years ago, and I think it was the brands and the media companies and the agencies that really drove that takeoff. I started the Mobile Marketing Association a long time ago. She was a Metaverse Association. So I think the gaming has been a problem as the nomenclature, where a lot of brands and media companies don't want to make a game that's like, what are your 7-day metrics? No one cares, but they are very good at making like interactive, engaging experiences that could be up for a week or a weekend or a campaign flight. So I think now this year I'm a big proponent of the open metaverse, where you can activate on the browser and you can activate from a QR code, from a billboard or from a website. So I think that's when the brand's going to lean in and take it all mainstream, and we get rid of all the jargon, and it's all about rewards, and it's not a game. It's actually just a fun, engaging experience, kind of like what we did with the concerts. They were fun things that were up, and then they were gone.
All right, Jon, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Napster CEO Jon Vlassopulos.